Hank awoke to discover his phone displaying 10 missed calls and an equal number of voicemails. Due to his previous encounters with Chinese robo-marketing spam calls, he had set his phone to send unknown numbers directly to voicemail. Notably, Beijing Betty, who usually didn't leave messages, had done so this time. With his daughters still asleep, Hank began listening to the messages. It was then that he learned the shocking truth. His wife, Randy, had not been in Jacksonville, Florida, visiting her parents and sister as she had claimed. Instead, she was in the burn unit of a hospital in Boulder, Colorado. Hank fell silent, taking in the news. As his phone continued to provide news alerts, he realized that he had seen a headline about a fire in Boulder. Curiosity piqued. He navigated to his phone's home page and was confronted with a haunting headline: "Wildfire destroys suburban Boulder overnight." Intriguing. Hank, although not always the most perceptive, could only think of one reason why his wife would lie about her whereabouts after 8 years of marriage. He consciously slowed down, recognizing that there was no need to rush. He made himself a cup of coffee, knowing that his daughters wouldn't be awake for at least another hour. Carrying the coffee to Randy's workspace in the dining room, he decided to check her laptop. However, he discovered that it was now protected by a password unknown to him. Nevertheless, Randy had always been absent-minded and lazy. Hank searched for any written passwords and eventually found one at the bottom of a drawer in the small desk. With access granted, he realized that Randy hadn't even bothered to close her email browsers. She had simply turned off her computer, relying on her new password and her assumption that Hank would respect her privacy. However, all the assumptions that had existed within their family before this morning no longer held true, Hank pondered. Everything had changed, and so it was. On weekends, she would meet up with her ex-college boyfriend, Josh Turner, at his Boulder home while his wife was away. This was the same man who had broken Randy's heart by falling in love with and marrying another woman. It seemed that over the years, he had developed remorse towards the woman he had abandoned, or perhaps it was just lust. Their emails lacked much detail, mainly confirming the time of their meetings. Hank assumed that they poured their hearts out to each other over the phone. However, one interesting fact came to light. Her parents and sister were aware of the affair and agreed to cover it up. This information was not found in the emails but in the open Facebook Messenger chats. They all believed that she should have married Josh, whose family had wealth. Hank felt frozen, as if he were witnessing a car accident in slow motion and couldn't tear his eyes away. He took a moment to breathe deeply and calm himself down. It was necessary, or else he might have punched holes in the drywall of the house. He decided to call the hospital in Boulder. When the switchboard answered, he impulsively asked if Josh Turner was a patient. When they inquired about Hank's relationship with Mr. Turner, he simply stated that they were friends. The operator informed him that she couldn't provide any information. This response confirmed that there was indeed a patient named Josh Turner. Hank then dialed the number left in his voicemail. It connected him directly to the hospital's emergency department. After identifying himself, the clerk informed him that Randy had been admitted with third-degree burns covering 80% of her body, including lung damage from smoke inhalation. A fire had apparently erupted suddenly in the drought-stricken area, rapidly spreading due to strong winds and cutting off the only escape route. Over 100 houses were burned and destroyed. Hank, in disbelief, stated that it couldn't be his wife. She was in Jacksonville, Florida. The information must be incorrect. He ended the call, refusing to accept the truth. However, deep down, he knew there was a fire in Boulder. He sensed it, but he wasn't going to make it easy for anyone to break the news to him. He scrutinized his wife's computer once more and accessed Josh's Facebook page, where Randy had indeed added him as a friend. There, he discovered Josh's wife, who had made a public post from her family's residence in San Diego, soliciting prayers due to her husband's hospitalization with severe burns. It's about time those prayers were answered by the God of vengeance, Hank mused as he initiated contact with Josh's wife, Tina, via Facebook Messenger to introduce himself and relay the information he had uncovered, leaving his phone number for further communication. After some time, while finishing his coffee, he noticed another missed call. Though the number was unfamiliar, there was a voicemail from Tina. Hank promptly returned her call. "Miss Turner? Is your name truly Tina?" he inquired. Tina confirmed with a sigh, elaborating on her marital situation and expressing her distress over Josh's condition. Hank reciprocated by sharing his own experience, acknowledging the shock of learning the truth about the circumstances. Tina then divulged that Josh had sustained severe burns and had been placed in a medically induced coma, which left Hank reeling with disbelief. Their conversation turned to the peculiar hospital calls, prompting Tina to suggest staying in touch before concluding the call. Hank, recognizing the importance of maintaining contact, saved Tina's number in his contacts to ensure future communication. Shortly afterward, he received a call from Randy's father, Bob, likely prompted by the news. Despite the pause, Hank recognized the strained relationship between himself and Bob, reflecting their mutual disdain for each other. The facade of polite communication between Hank and Bob had dissolved, evident in Bob's inquiry about Randy's whereabouts. Hank's response was tinged with bitterness, emphasizing the moral absurdity of expecting updates about Randy's actions. Sensing Hank's underlying resentment, Bob acknowledged the strained relationship between them and attempted to express concern for Randy's feelings. However, Hank's patience wore thin, leading him to confront Bob's long-standing disapproval and then abruptly ending the call. With nothing more to add, Hank took proactive measures to block Bob's phone numbers, as well as those of other family members, to prevent further unwelcome communication. The interruption by his daughters brought a light-hearted moment, momentarily distracting from the tension. Hank's effort to steer the conversation towards a more cheerful topic, such as breakfast and cartoons, reflected his desire to maintain normalcy in his household amidst the turmoil. Amidst the domestic scene, Tina Turner's call interrupted once again, prompting Hank's inquiry about her comment regarding the inefficacy of her medication. Tina proceeded to recount her experience at the hospital, where she was connected to Josh's intensive care unit and ultimately lost her composure, underscoring the gravity of the situation. I exclaimed that his girlfriend had also suffered severe burns and was likely to perish, placing the blame on him. Furthermore, I proposed that once we both received our life insurance payouts, we would embark on a worldwide cruise and spend the entire duration engaging in intimate relations with one another to the point of exhaustion as a means to compensate. Upon hearing my words, his heart nearly ceased beating, despite being in a coma. It is uncertain whether my outburst directly caused this or if it was merely a coincidence. Nevertheless, he managed to pull through. "I apologize." She paused. "It is regrettable. Are you sorry that his heart almost stopped, or are you sorry that he is still alive?" Hank's natural inclination was towards cruelty, yet he managed to restrain himself. "It is truly unfortunate that everything unfolded in this manner. Likewise." After a moment of silence, he inquired, "Enlighten me about this cruise we are planning." "I apologize, I am unsure where that came from, but I am genuinely intrigued. I believe that to be true." She paused. "Are you genuinely interested, Hank? I noticed on Facebook that you possess an attractive countenance, although I did not particularly follow your online presence. If I were to seek revenge through physical intimacy, you would be a suitable choice. Why do you ask?" "I have an opportunity." "I am uncertain," she replied slowly. "Ever since I discovered his infidelity, I have been pondering what was wrong with me. Your interest in me provides some solace. You do not appear unappealing yourself." "In any case," Hank scoffed, "thank you. It is reassuring to hear that, even though my wife clearly favored your husband. Perhaps the issue lies elsewhere." "For some reason, I believe so too." Tina Turner paused once more. "Have you ever wondered why they did it? I suppose they believed they could engage in extramarital affairs without facing consequences. It sounds so straightforward." "Well, what else?" Tina stated resolutely. "Listen, we both have a lot to process, but let us stay in touch. We are the only two individuals who truly comprehend each other's current emotions." "Very well. I need to purchase Bermuda shorts and swimming trunks from Amazon for the cruise," she giggled. "At least you bring me comfort. Perhaps the medication has had an effect. Acquire a cabin with a balcony." She emitted another giggle. "Farewell." They terminated the call. Hank noticed that he had received another voicemail. It was from the hospital once again. He returned the call and connected with the nurse in Randy's room. She also activated the speakerphone. It appeared to be a different nurse from the one who cared for Josh, However, they all appeared to be following the same set of medical guidelines in their practice. Mr. Henry Becker, this is Nurse Yang speaking. We are currently on speakerphone. I am situated in the burn intensive care unit of the hospital. Your wife is here. She has suffered severe burns and is currently in a medically induced coma. She is right beside me. We hope that the sound of your voice can provide some comfort, even if she is unconscious. Hank contemplated that after today, the hospital would need to revise its standard procedures for dealing with a patient's family. However, he felt compelled to ask, "Why do you believe so?" "I was not present when they brought her in. One of my colleagues was there. She mentioned that your wife held onto her hand tightly and refused to let go until they realized that she was insisting on contacting you. I apologize for the inconvenience. Your wife fought the medical team with all her strength and did not allow them to proceed until they assured her that they would convey the message." Okay, it's too little, too late, Hank thought. What should I say? "Tell her everything that is on your mind," the nurse innocently suggested. Okay, Hank thought. The game begins. "Listen here, you deceitful liar," he shouted into the phone at his wife. "I hope you spend eternity in hell with Josh, who also perished. Just so you know, I will use all the life insurance money I received to seduce Josh's wife, and I will never forgive you." The line went dead. The nurse must not have been listening from the beginning, but she seemed to regain her senses. Hank realized that at this rate, he would not achieve his goal of finding peace of mind. Someday, he would likely feel some remorse for saying all of that. But today was not that day. "Dad, what does seduce mean?" Becky inquired, clutching her teddy bear tightly. "My young ones." "Ah, that implies deceiving someone." She pondered this with a solemn expression. When will Mother come back home? That's what truly infuriated him, having to explain the situation to his daughters. He should have carefully considered it, but he wasn't in the right frame of mind. Becky promptly returned to the living room as soon as she could. Hank observed as she settled down in front of the television. There was absolutely no way he would take the girls to the hospital in Colorado to see their mother, wrapped in bandages like a mummy, so they wouldn't have those memories. 30 minutes later, he had secured tickets for a week-long trip to Disneyland, a reservation at one of Mickey's hotels, and plane tickets. They departed the following morning. Nicole would have to miss some time in kindergarten, but so be it. Just as he received the tickets, the hospital called back. It turned out that Randy had suffered a heart attack and passed away. All attempts to save her were in vain. Hank inquired about the timing of this. It happened right around the time he yelled at her. Perhaps he would advise Tina to try yelling at Josh again. No, he decided to let her figure it out on her own. Hank ended up having to send Randy's health insurance information to the hospital in order to compel them to provide him with the death certificate. He contacted the funeral home there and made arrangements for her cremation, considering her burns. Hank thought he might receive a discount, but they informed him that he would still be charged the full price. He requested them to mail him the ashes after their return from Disney. Once there, the girls were saddened by their mother's absence, but they indulged themselves with plenty of treats at the Bibbidi-Bobbidi boutique. Josh held on until Thursday. Tina had stopped yelling at him, so maybe that helped him stay after his passing. Tina returned to Colorado, residing with friends since her house had burned down. She portrayed herself as a noble widow for the sake of her children, she informed Hank. She didn't disclose Randy's fate to them. Tina's children were older than Hank's, and they were aware that their father had been injured in the fire. It would all become more difficult to disregard. Hanks's daughters were unaware that he would continue in this manner for an extended period of time, but refraining from saying anything negative about their mother was not a simple task. Shortly after their return from Florida, the FedEx delivery person arrived at the door with 2 items that required a signature. The first was a letter from her relatives, while the second was the box containing Randy's ashes. The letter requested that Randy's remains be kept in his hometown of Florida if Hank did not wish to make arrangements where he currently resided. They must have been contacting someone. Hank realized that the letter lacked any apology for covering up for Randy. This fact made the subsequent decision easier. He hired a teenage girl from the neighborhood to babysit the children and left the girls with the nanny, informing her about their trip to Disney. He even showed them all their belongings and photos on the iPad. Hank then drove to a nearby national park with a bag slung over his shoulder, containing Randy's ashes packed into a box. He headed towards one of the more remote areas of the park, where deep cinder-block toilets were present instead of regular bathrooms. He took a photo of himself pouring the ashes into the latrine. As he walked back to the car, he contemplated whether he should seek therapy. However, the truth was that he was no longer angry. Well, he wasn't angry enough to physically harm anyone. Ruining someone's reputation was an entirely different matter. He uploaded a video on Facebook, showcasing himself disposing of the ashes in a restroom, along with an explanation. Afterwards, he wondered if the National Park Service would impose some sort of fine on him for polluting the cesspool. If that were the case, he would willingly pay it. He never reached out to her family, but he read in the newspaper that they were holding a memorial service in Jacksonville without him or his daughters. He informed the girls that their mother had an accident while she was away and would not be returning. They took the news as he had anticipated. Fortunately, they had supportive and wonderful kindergarten teachers to assist them. The life insurance payout was a welcome relief. Randy possessed a greater amount of insurance coverage than Hank had initially believed. The benefits provided by the insurance policy facilitated the process of restructuring. Visualize Randy's professional life. He made the decision that his daughters required more exposure to fresh air, particularly in playgrounds where numerous children and attractive young mothers frequented. Many of these mothers displayed great sympathy towards his tragic narrative. However, he deliberately omitted the part about Randy's infidelity. His intention was to garner sympathy rather than pity. Consequently, the girls began receiving invitations for play dates, during which the mothers would invite their attractive single friends. Hank started to perceive a potential path forward. Despite engaging in occasional phone conversations with Tina Turner, Hank never had the opportunity to meet her in person. Ensure to subscribe to our channel in order to prevent your second partner from betraying you. Furthermore, proceed to listen to the subsequent story, as it surpasses the current one in terms of intrigue. If you are under the age of 18, it is strongly advised that you refrain from contemplating the idea of listening to the upcoming story.